Greetings, Osio, Halito, Mabriqua, to each and every one of you. This is Chief Kalanago with a presentation. The views expressed in this video or presentation is not necessarily my views. I do not warrant the accuracy, reliability, or completeness of this video or views or statements in this presentation. I do not accept legal ability whatsoever arising from any reliance on the views or statements or subject matter thereof. This presentation is based on public research, public information, and from a documentary by One Media. Please take your notes and do your own research. This presentation, the topic is American Illuminati. Some people may pronounce Illuminati. How the Illuminati invaded and took control of the United States of America. Using new evidence, we will reveal how this massive secret organization infiltrated the religious groups, political parties, universities, and corporations. How they placed their own people in positions of power and authority. How they manipulated the minds of the masses and hid it all from view. This group embraces what is known as the esoteric, the so-called spiritual truth hidden from the rest of us. Over a vast period of time, this secretive organization turned slowly to the dark side of the esoteric truths and utilized them for the power and control. They take their own orders from the International Secret Council of Nine. They are collectively called the Confederation of Initiates. They are under the strict control of their masters, and to oppose them means punishment worse than death. This has been a practice for thousands of years, and they are working slowly but surely towards their ultimate goal of a one world government with the nine in control. The so-called land of the free is not free at all. It is under the yoke of the very large, very powerful, and very secret organization. In 1933, the International Secret Council of Nine, who direct the Confederation of Initiates of the Illuminati, issued the following highly secret statement. To the order of the Rosicrucians, this is the new dispensation. Under the work of the spiritual and mystical fraternities of the Illuminati. The Rosicrucians were and still are a mystical secretive order, originating in a completely false origin story from the originally false originator, Christian Rosicrucian. It was, in fact, an organization created by the Illuminati to gather its believers and initiates. It worked beautifully and spread throughout the world, and then spawned yet further secret orders of its own. This indeed is how the web is created, and the real origin long forgotten and hidden. Secondly, the text reveals that the Rosicrucians were in fact much older and the oldest in the USA. Thirdly, they were to use the old methods from the Essene. Those were the Gnostic Jews who wrote all the New Testament and all the texts that didn't make it into the Bible. The Dead Sea Scrolls were written by these mystics. Must be reestablished throughout the world, so that all people may be taught the law and thereby enabled to apply towards universal improvement. As the only means of saving mankind, we, the Council of Nine, have selected your organization as one of the oldest in America to help do this work. The symbol was the Christian cross. This must be brought about in such a manner that there can be no question of personal self-interest. May we suggest that you select as your method that of the pre-Christian Essenian order in which Jesus was trained, accepting in good faith all students who apply on an absolutely free will basis, instructing them in the ancient manner, and permitting these students to compensate you on an exchange basis. The man who wrote these words was Count de Saint Vincent, the master of the Council of Nine. This small section reveals a great many things. Firstly, that the order of the Rosicrucians did indeed come under the rule. They themselves have their own origins in the much older Egyptian, Syria, and Eastern courts. It stretches back many thousands of years. Fourthly, they were not this time to be too choosy who they allowed to join. This implies that they used to be, and indeed that is the truth. Now, with the advent of the second wave of the worldwide revolution about to begin with the Second World War, all were to be accepted into the fold for the great work to get underway. Side note, world news. September 1st, 1939, the German armies without warning blitzed into Poland. The Nazi bid to smash the world into slavery was on. On September 3rd, the British and French declared war on Germany. By September 27th, the Germans had wiped out Poland and met the ongoing Russian army. Determined to avoid a two-front war, Germany halted her drive to the east and turned west to first crush Britain and France. End of side note. Back to lecture. This was and is the group that has spread throughout the world and has been involved in most of the big revolutions that have occurred, including the French and the American revolutions. Dr. Randolph was a man who investigated the order. At the time this text was written, he stated, open quote, many though by now means all the alchemists and Hermetic philosophers were acolytes of the vast secret brotherhood which has thrived from the earliest ages. The members of this mystic union were the Magi of old who flourished in Chaldea ages before. These were the original people of Sumer. They were the men who founded the Semitic civilizations of this great brotherhood, sprung Brahman, Buddha, Loets, Zoroaster, the Gnostics, the Essene, and Jesus, who was himself an Essene, preached the sacred doctrine of the foundation of preached the doctrine of the fountain of light. This fountain of light is the illumination, the inner enlightenment to the reality of existence, and from where the term Illuminati derived. He continues, they were the men who first discovered the significance of the fire. The transcendent light now illuminates the world. Comes from
There is nothing original in thaumaturgy,
they lighted at the fountain when all light streameth upon that mystic
but
mountain
it
of
to the world.
initiation. Dr. Randolph here reveals the full extent of the Illuminati, that they are secret, spread throughout the world, originated religions, and saw their origins in the illumination of the mind from the philosophy to psychology. They therefore believed they had the right to rule the world, and over time they used their knowledge to force and manipulate their control over those who refused to see the light. They were the right, everybody else was wrong, and their own doctrine stated such, and gave them the rights, powers, and knowledge to manipulate man. The Rosicrucians are Illumines of the oldest stock, and were spreading far and wide across the United States. They give the following explanation of their fire or light, the thing which gives rise to the name Illuminati. There is in nature one most potent force, by means of which a single person who would possess himself of it and know how to direct it could revolutionize the whole face of the world. This force was known to the ancients, and the secret is possessed by the secret school of the present day. It is a universal agent whose supreme law is equilibrium, and whereby, if science can but learn, has to control it. It will be possible to send a thought in an instant around the world, to heal or slay at a distance, to give our worlds universal success, and to make them reverberate everywhere. Strong beliefs indeed, and yet we must also realize these people of speak in parables. They don't always mean what they say. They taught that all the scriptures of all religions were parables, and hid the secret doctrine. The truth of the scriptures to them is that there was not just one Christ, but all are capable of being the light on earth. All have hidden Christ within, a belief that runs counter to the established church and was therefore hidden. These teachings are in fact spread across all of the secret societies, for all are linked under the web of the Illuminati. All were created directly or indirectly by them. In 1905, one such order was created in the USA by a Dr. Julia Seton and was called the Modern Church. Its purpose was to prepare the minds of the people for the new civilization to come. She stated, open quote, "The Illuminati school is the modern school of the higher psychological and mysticism, where ancient and occult wisdom is revealed. It teaches new methods of social, ethical, industrial, religious, international, and national liberty. Here is revealed their belief again, that they are higher and therefore above all. They will teach the rest of us about their ways." Because obviously we need to know, because they believe God or the universal life force was speaking through them. They believe that everybody else was wrong. They used their substantial wealth and power to spread these doctrines, and it was needed. They called mankind to join them. Anybody who did not was obviously not listening to the voice of the universal spirit within them. Those who heard the call and joined were chosen special. Similar doctrines we would hear again at the dawn of the Second World War. Man, they said, was not part of God, nor a creation of God, but the universal intelligence or cosmic spirit itself. The purpose of this system was simple. It was to take away the individualism of the follower. He was to listen only to the cosmic spirit and not his own reason. Through the various initiations, members of these cults are washed clean of their own mind and given a new one. They are broken and rebuilt. This is a very old method of creating an army. Their new civilization was not to be one of light at all. It was to be one of the master and blind servant. Confuse and then make clear. Befuddle and bemuse, and then explain in simpler terms. They are the methods of forcing the initiate to believe he has become enlightened. By 1925, a new Messiah was launched upon the Americans. He was a Russian by the name of Nicholas Roerich. He was a painter, philosopher, and supposed scientist. In Russia, he has achieved greatness and was adored by many. He was then invited to the United States of America. In 1922, he established the Corona Mundi, the core earth. He started to teach his ideology of the new era, another name for new world order, the new civilization, but the same old story. He became so popular that his teaching spread outwards around the world. He taught the same old things, that the willpower within is the divine essence and is the answer to all. It was he who said, open quote, the creed of a new era of mighty approaching energies and possibilities, close quote. The sheep listened and followed, yet the new world, he said, would be created by the fire, the light within us all, joining together and allowing the illuminated to dominate the world and bring peace. Any who did not listen were simply negatives. The world would be dominated by the Illuminati. This Russian was just another mystic shouting about the so-called truth. No scientific backing, no evidence, no proof was needed for such mystic statements. He was, however, a member of the organization that was trying to enlighten the world to their new world order. Their light would shine and others would be extinguished. Much of this is not a secret. Indeed, it was spread to all who could hear. But the truth behind the purpose of all of this was hidden. The truth was to take the minds of the people to control for their own purpose. Through people such as Roerich and Madame Blavatsky of the Theosophist, the word was heard and spread into the higher authorities of the land. But this was in fact just a reinvigoration of what had already come before. From the moment the first settlers landed in the United States of America, the message was being spread. The fraternity of the Freemasons was deeply rooted within the government, military, religion, and commerce. The Freemasons absorbed, cultivated, and spread the mystic light, the messages of the masters, and the Council of Nine. They did not always understand what they were spreading, but they spread it anyway. Those at the highest degrees of the initiation were aware, and they created revolutions and formed governments. These are just ants doing the master's bidding, the army that is called to revolution to fight. The true Illuminati are the hidden, true masters unseen, who are the masters. In 1912, the Theosophist Annie Besant wrote, a master is a term applied by the Theosophist to denote certain human beings who have completed their human exaltation, have attained human perfection. It didn't matter what society or order the followers belonged to, because the masters ruled them all In reality, the Theoists and the Rosicrucians were linked under the group of esoteric men we generally term the Illuminati. They were all fed from the same trough. This hidden group were known to the various groups as the hierarchy of light, the elder brother. Nobody ever saw them. They just did their bidding. Under these men were the 7 masters of the Great White Lodge. These had their hands on the reins of government. They control whole continents. They guided destinies, inspired statesmen and rulers to actions, governed over many orders and groups. Each master had a name, for there was no face. Jupiter, Moria, Pumi, Amori. The history of one of them was known, even if his real name and location was not. He had been educated at a British university, was widely read, and was in charge of revitalizing the ancient philosophies. Their aim was to ensure that the head of every government and organization of power and authority should be ruled over by a master, or at the very least, one under the master's control. They were to gather in anybody who showed an interest in seeking the force. Their ultimate goal, they say, is to control all the world under the power and authority of the hidden masters and to reign over a world of peace, only by ensuring that all human minds succumbed to the will of the light or fire. Will true power come about? All must do the master's bidding if there is to be peace in the world, through their various means of establishing this authority of the light. They reduce man down to a shell. By means of pseudo-yoga, the pupil's personality is, in return, withdrawn from the physical body until they say the man recognizes himself as a part of the master's consciousness. The master is only interested in a man from the point of view of his usefulness and his capacity to learn. These are their own words. They even tell us how the forces are used to enable this control. They use, as all cults have throughout time, rhythmic sounds, words and phrases, music, dance, and meditation. These methods remove obstacles in the mind. The rhythmic nature, they say, allow true nature to flow. In essence, it is nothing more than a method of hypnotism, and it is useful in churches, Masonic lodges, and all secret societies. The effects are global, for all men are the same natural beings. In the early 20th century, the Rosicrucians and the Theosophists for America set out their store. They had a plan given to them by the masters. They would take control of the politics, religion, and education. Through these, they would control business and the rest of the world. America, by the time they had finished, would be the world dominant power. Their vision was realized by the end of World War II, as their great revolution ended. Hitler said, quote, "Men, women, and children must slave on the farm or in factory for the Nazi master race, or starve. There will be a class of subject alien races. We need not hesitate to call them slaves. French children were to grow up in such inadequate food that many will reach the age of 12 before they grew teeth." Side note, newspaper, the New York Times, Nazis execute 50 French hostages in Bordeaux. Hitler continued, and for any attempt to protest against these restrictions, thousands of innocent French French civilians would be executed. This was the price the French were to pay as they signed the armistice, and the master of the master race must go to Paris to tour the streets of what was once the city of light. You notice, no cheering crowds here to welcome in the new order. Lecture continued, back to the Illuminati. Old empires were destroyed with two world wars, and a new one emerged. Their plans were succeeding. In 1864, revolutionary writers Maurice John wrote, quote, open quote, "Before thinking of actually directing the public, one must stun it, dazzle it by all sorts of movements, mislead it. Insensible in its ways, they did stun the world with two dreadful world wars, which was nothing more than revolutions, no different to the French and the American versions, which they also set in motion through their secret societies. In the early 20th century, one of the 9 masters actually said, open quote, experiments are being made now, unknown to the subjects themselves, that people in many civilized countries are under supervision, and a method of stimulation and intensification is being applied, which will bring to the knowledge of the great ones themselves a mass of information that they may serve as a guide to their future efforts for the race, especially our people in America, Australia, India, Russia, Scotland, and Greece being dealt with. A few in Belgium, Sweden, and Australia are likewise under observation. Schools have already been started. When they are firmly grounded, when they are working smoothly and with public recognition, and when the world of men is being somewhat colored by them, when they are producing scholars, workers, politicians, scientists, and educational leaders who make their impress on their environment, then mayhap will come the true occult school. Close quotation. The whole idea yet again is to control the minds of men. The control is to complete that in their own words. The initiate cares not if he loses friends, relations, children, popularity. He cares not if he seems to work in the dark and is conscious of little result from his labors. By 1927, they were claiming that we are witnessing the birth of a new world consciousness, of a world civilization. All traditions are being broken down, all customs destroyed. There must be anarchy before there can be creation. Their workers are necessarily cultured and widely read. They do not regard their country and political affiliations as paramount importance. They are equipped to organize slowly and steadily that public opinion. The biggest work for them, they predicted, was to be the mid-1930s. It was to be the time of anarchy before the calm. They said of the 1930s, material stress and strain, the wrecking of old political parties, the overthrowing of trade relations. All of this came true. The Depression caused mayhem, political upheaval, and saw the birth of a new radical political parties around the world, and none more so than in Nazi Germany. All of this was needed, they said, to demonstrate the necessity of establishing a spirit of international dependency and interrelation so that nations would be politically forced to realize their isolation, separateness, and the cultivation of national egoism must go. After the first revolution of the World War I, they brought about the League of Nations, a group of countries desiring never again to see war on such a scale. All of this takes time and a great deal of work. The very foundations of America are those of the Illuminati. As one writer in the early 20th century wrote, "How did it happen? At the time of the American Revolution, when next to nothing was known of the mathematical interpretation of the Great Pyramid, that its symbols or symbolism was used in concrete exactness on the Great Seal of the United States, indicating that it was part of America to reinstate the rule of Christ the light or illumination on earth. It happened because it was a symbol and sign for all to see, for many to rejoice over, the others to fear. It was the symbol of coming to power of the hidden masters." An American high mason and Rosicrucian in 1877 wrote, "In the last century, the United States was freed from tyranny of the mother country by the action of secret societies more than is commonly imagined." It was true. All of those in positions of power and authority on all sides of the American Revolution were in fact brothers of the same lodges and fraternities. They even held meetings between political enemies of brothers on the battlefield. It was all staged. It was staged again, but pushed out into a wider world in the 20th century World War Revolution. This is what the Illuminati said in the 1920s. Do you know that there are men and women in the United States who are able to look into the immediate future with transcendent vision and discern accurately a complete metamorphosis of our present institutions along more wholesomeness? This means in plain language that they can see what improvements in our political and economic order are going to arise from this present period of distress and turmoil. They see these improvements crystallizing between 1933 and 1945, both dates written large on the Great Pyramid prophecy. 1933 is the year that Adolf Hitler came into power. In 1945 is the year his reign ended. This had all in fact been going on for a long time. Often the politicians are completely unaware of it and are just pawns in the bigger game. Other times they fully know and cover up. George Washington, who himself a Freemason, wrote, "It was not my intention to doubt that the doctrines of the Illuminati and principles of the Jacobinism had not spread in the United States. On the contrary, no one is more truly satisfied with this fact than I am. There has always been two sides to the Illuminati movement. The mystical side we have covered, but this in truth just a modern cover for the political schemings in the background. In the 18th century, when the name Illuminati surfaced, the political clubs were called Jacobin clubs, seen by many as an aristocrat group or groups fostering followers. Today, their direct descendants are known as the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the United Nations, and more. All of this can be easily traced back to those earlier groups. Even the same bloodlines exist within all the organizations. They plan and scheme and throw up congressmen, senators, and presidents and place them where they are needed. Through the vast wealth and media power, they manipulate the masses to carry out that fakery they call democracy. There are several well-known and often covered names involved in all this. The European financier family that's had huge influence is the Rockefeller family. David Rockefeller founded the Trilateral Commission and was a co-founder of the Council on Foreign Relations. The family tree reads like an Illuminati. Greatest Hits album. Through just the minor works of this one family, a grand unification has taken place. Countries of the world have been brought together under the powerful influence of just one head. The United Nations is a group of nations, but the delegates all owe their positions to the various branches of the worldwide Illuminati and so the master's bidding. And do the master's bidding, pardon me. What the Illuminati cannot make happen through influence, they bring about through revolution. The United States was the major game player in World War I and II. Woodrow Wilson's 14-point plan after World War I held within it a veiled attempt to get all nations to surrender to their sovereignty. It almost worked when they formed the League of Nations. However, the US never actually joined itself. It didn't really matter, because World War II was already on the planning stages, and the Council on Foreign Relations was created behind the scenes. This is an almost country-sized secret society in itself, plotting and planning on our behalf. Most of the members have bloodlines that stretch back to the early day of the Illuminati and the royal house, if you would. The rest are high-powered businessmen and other such people with positions of vast power. We must remember that all of these institutions are places for generally non-elected people. The same is true of that other global secret group, the Bilderbergers. In the USA, there is a friendly group called the American Friends of the Bilderbergers. Each group is made up of chosen individuals. Chosen by whom? Somebody here has the power to choose people who already have amazing power. In a so-called democratic nation, the people should be informed of what, who, and why. The Bilderberger is made up from the world of international banking, political circles, and business and professional people. They hold top secret meetings annually to promote internationalism. Each promoter's mumbles one world agenda, and it is fully American endorsed, with a host of politicians, scientists, and business leaders from the USA attending. All of the meetings are secret. Nobody ever tells. So just how and when did the Illuminati influence in the United States begin? The very first official mention of them is in around 1785, when the Columbia Lodge of the Illuminati was established in New York. Some of its members were the Governor Clinton, the editor of the New York Times, and the early Roosevelts. In 1786, another lodge started in Virginia, with Thomas Jefferson as the member. This was followed quickly by 14 more lodges throughout then 13 states. In 1789, some people were getting concerned. The president of Harvard issued a warning about their growing influence on politics and even in religion. At the exact same time, the French Illuminati came to pay a visit and helped to spread it even further. George Washington was so worried about the Illuminati and its influence that he said it would shake the government to its foundation. Both Washington and Adams lobbied Congress to protect the U.S. from conspiracy. Thomas Paine, the author of Actually aided the Illuminati to infiltrate several Masonic lodges. By 1798, the Reverend Jedediah Moss in Charleston, South Carolina, preached a sermon about the Illuminati. Practically all of the civil and ecclesiastical establishments of Europe have already been shaken to their foundations by this terrible organization. The French Revolution itself is doubtless to be traced to its machinations. The success of the French armies are to be explained on the same ground. The Jacobins are nothing more nor less than the open manifestation of the hidden system of the Illuminati. The order has its branches established and its emissaries at work in America. The affiliated Jacobin societies in America have doubtless had as the object of their establishment the propagation of the principles of the Illuminated Mother Club in France. I hold it a duty, my brethren, which I owe to God, to the cause of religion, to my country, and to you at this time, to declare to you those honestly and faithfully these truths. My only aim is to awaken you and myself a due attention at the alarming perils to our dearest interests. As a faithful watchman, I would give you warning of your present danger. In the same year, President of Yale University said, "Shall our sons become the disciples of Voltaire and the dragons of Morale, or our daughters be concubines of the Illuminati?" Thomas Jefferson, a member of the Virginia Lodge of the Illuminati and a Mason, helped the Illuminati to infiltrate the New England Masonic lodges. Also in 1789, the Reverend Snyder, a Lutheran minister, wrote to President Washington expressing his concern about the Illuminati infiltrating the American Masonic lodges. Washington wrote back, "I have heard much about the nefarious and dangerous plan and the doctrines of the Illuminati." Shortly before his death, Washington issued 2 dire warnings about the Illuminati. In 1807, the future President John Adams wrote 3 letters to a Masonic brother complaining that Thomas Jefferson was using the lodges for Illuminati purposes. The letters have been stolen and never been seen since. He also wrote to Washington and others saying that lodges were being used by the Illuminati for their satanic worship. Rumors also circulated that Benjamin Franklin was the Illuminati, but most of the focus and hatred was directed at Jefferson, who the Reverend Morse called an Illuminatiness. In 1812, the president of Harvard gave the following speech: "There is sufficient evidence that a number of societies of the Illuminati have been established in this land of gospel might and civil liberties, which were first organized from the Grand Society in France. They are doubtless secretly striving to undermine all our ancient institutions, civil and sacred. These societies are closely leagued with those to the same order in Europe. They have all the same object in view. The enemies of all order are seeking our ruin. Should infidelity generally prevail, our independence would fall, of course. Our Republican government would be annihilated." In that same year, the British attacked Washington in order to destroy vital documents that revealed the Illuminati influence on the government and the war. In 1829, the British Illuminati were giving speeches in New York. Frances Wright spoke for the Women's Auxiliary of the Illuminati on free love and atheism. She spoke of the international secret movement that was working behind the scenes to ferment future wars to bring about the one world agenda. Indeed, they were called the communists before communism. It was the plan, she said, to create mayhem so that the members of the Illuminati were seen as the saviors and bring peace. In 1843, the poet Heinrich Heine wrote, "Communism is the secret name of this tremendous adversary, which the rule of the proletariat, with all that implies, opposes the existing bourgeoisie regime. Communism is nonetheless the dark hero, cast for enormous, if fleeting role in the modern tragedy, and awaiting its cue enter the stage." At the same time, the editors of the New York Tribune and New York Sun were working with the Rothschilds on secret Illuminati committee. It is believed the committee was all about the ruining of America from behind the scenes. In 1841, Clinton Roosevelt wrote a book outlining plans for the New Deal and Nation All Recovery Act, both of which would not even be realized for another 100 years under Franklin D. Roosevelt. Long-term plans and family bloodlines, indeed. In 1835, the Illuminati set up yet another front organization called the Local Fop Party. It was used over a period of 10 years to influence other political parties and institutes many of the socialist ideals that conservatives still hate to this day. Throughout this whole time, the Illuminati influence in the government of the United States was immense. From the Constitution to the political structures, it was a massive political influence and still is. But that second tier of Illuminati influence also played a major role, for the two cannot be divided. The mystical side of the Illumines is clear to see even to this day because of their huge influence. From the sacred geometry of the Washington, D.C., to all-seeing eye on the dollar bill, the sacred symbol of illumination, of illuminism, are everywhere for those with the eye to see. In essence, the history of the Illuminati in the United States cannot be divided from the rest of the world because it is all about the creation of a new world, and the Americas play a vital role in the grand plan. They started many thousands of years ago in the mysterious cults of Syria and elsewhere. They grew indeed, and profound understanding of the human mind within the universal mind. The man in matter, the spirit in nature, through the use of drugs, meditation, dervish, and other means, they tripped the light, fantastic, and began a journey towards the light. Along the way, greed and desire for power stepped in and turned the knowledge gained towards the dark side. Over vast periods of time, power was jealousy, guarded and grown. But man is a chaotic being and power a strong pull. They didn't always have it their own way and fought many battles for control. Over time, they have brought down governments, royal dynasties, and religions. They have thrown the world into the desperate pit of warfare and then offered us peace and calm on their terms. They have grown wealth so vast it staggers the mind. Nobody now is in position to truly fight them or has enough knowledge to truly reveal them. That is why they are the enigma we know as the Illuminati. But they have taken America. They do own every large institutions, every large businesses. Their men and women are in the highest office of the land. All listen to the master's voice, talking to them through the eons of mysticism in a political world of power. Next time you cast your vote, just ask yourself, why you bother? You are given two choices, as always, left or right. It does not matter. Both are under the yoke of the masters. End of presentation. Please do your research. These views are based on research, public information. So do your own research and hey, make sense out of what you think it is. But I wanted to do this presentation so that you guys think on everything that I just said and look around you. And you'll really, really have a true understanding of what happened in the past, what's happening now, and what's going to happen. Peace, love, harmony, and light.